I'm currently on the phone with Acacia. She's another musician that reached out about the current interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the chance to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Acacia Sears. I'm a singer-songwriter from Baltimore, Maryland.
Perfect. Short and sweet. I like it. All right. So let's kind of get into how you kind of first came into contact with music. How old were you when you first kind of made that connection and began to realize that it was going to have a major impact on you?
Probably before I was verbal because my parents got me into singing when I was very little.
Okay. Did they have you just do like choir? Or was it church choir? Give me a little bit more detail about what that means.
I was probably 7 or 8 years old when they had me. There was a talent scout from New York about not the Phantom of the Opera, the Les Miserables, which was pretty popular in the 90s. And they were scouting for someone to play the little girl in the play, Cosette. And my parents would not let me go to that, unfortunately, but did stick me into musical theater and doing a lot of performance stuff at that age and moving forward for that period of time as well.
Okay, so when that happened, did you kind of make a scene about it, and that's when your parents kind of realized that you were serious about that sort of thing,
No, they
or
didn't tell me about it until years later because they knew that I would have made a scene about it.
I see. Okay, so that suggests that prior to that, you kind of had expressed your ambitions to become a singer and engage with music.
I was just singing along to anything I could get my ears on and doing it well enough that they thought that I had some skill at it and some talent. But it wasn't until my teenage years that I got really into learning how to make music myself and progress from there.
Okay, so let's kind of move forward to that then. Once you did kind of hit that point where you realized that you did have the ability to create, how did you begin that? Did you start learning an instrument or just focus on singing? What was your kind of thought process there?
I wasn't very popular in high school, so I taught myself how to play guitar. I'd had a couple of lessons here and there as a young child, and then I just sat down with the internet and my guitar and figured it out for the rest on myself.
Okay, so I assume that's like kind of learning, your basic open chords and things like that. Did you play along with any songs that you liked and stuff like that, or did you do tablature?
I did do tablature. It was peak 1990s, so the big musicians for people of my genre at that time were Jewel and Sarah McLachlan, and that's all I got compared to at that time. But that's also what we had.
Sure, sure. Awesome. So, was that kind of also the type of music that you saw yourself creating and wanted to create?
Up until I discovered some more versatile artists, yes, I really wanted to be like as mainstream as possible. If Adele had been around then, I probably would have been into Adele, but she wasn't.
Okay, okay. So tell me about the creative process that you took once you did learn to the point where you felt confident enough creating a piece of music.
I always drew from my own experiences, and if I didn't have anything that I thought was poetic and interesting enough to say, I just wouldn't say anything at all. So I wrote very, very sparsely during the beginning part of my life, and just whatever I felt was profound, that's what stayed on the paper. And if it didn't, I would not release it at all.
And while you were going through this initial creative process, did you have any method to do any sort of recording, or as you put it, was it all just putting it on paper?
At the time, it was putting on paper and, hitting a little pause and record at the same time on my tape decks. I did work in a studio. Eventually, I got connected with someone who had a home recording studio, and he did my first album for me when I was 21, I want to say.
At that point, when you were recording those songs, did you realize that that was something that you wanted to have for the rest of your life, being a musician and participating in art? Or at that point, was it still kind of just testing the waters to see if it was something that you were into?
No, it was something that I had that I felt I was good at and that I wanted to share with other people, because the big important part for me was sharing it with other people so that other people could have the same experience listening to my songs that I had when I was listening to other people's songs.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of your ambition towards the creative process is to kind of pull on heartstrings, make somebody feel what you were feeling when you, made the concept or the idea.
Precisely.
Okay. Do you feel like there's a lot of storytelling in your songs, or is it really kind of just focused on pulling those heartstrings?
No, it's the story is the heartstrings are pulled in the telling of the story.
Okay. And so it sounds like a lot of the experiences that you're putting into song are kind of lived experiences, as they say. You write what you know. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, most of my songs are autobiographical in nature.
Okay. Does that kind of tie into the whole Sarah McLachlan and Jewel kind of theme where they also had a lot of kind of autobiographical content?
I think that it was more Ani DeFranco. It was very eye opening when I finally did discover Ani DeFranco at that age because like she was really hitting her stride in the late '90s, and she was writing these incredibly personal and hard takes about life, and that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I strive to do still.
Sure. So once you mentioned that you did do that recording, and moving on from there, how did you kind of conceive your artistry? Did you always kind of see yourself as the solo singer songwriter, or did you want to put a band together? What was kind of the trajectory that you wanted for your creative process?
I would love to be in a band, and I have played in a band before. I haven't been as much lately because it's hard with people being our age and having schedules. But in my 20s and 30s, I definitely played in with my friends. I stole band members from other bands. It was great, just like you're supposed to do.
Sure, of course. So did you have any like formal music education, like via school, or was it always kind of, for lack of a better word, a hobby?
No, I had formal education in grade school, and I went to a performing arts elementary school. And then when I went to college, I started off in college as a voice major in at Towson University. But I dropped music when it was being more restrictive than I wanted it to be. I wanted to be told that I was allowed to create whatever I wanted to create, and they really wanted to teach structure and rules. And I didn't really want to learn about that. So I decided to stick with what I was doing on my own and change majors.
Okay, sure. So if you kind of had to put yourself into a nutshell of the type of ideas that you're putting out and creating, what would you say that is?
I think that what I write about is the same struggles of everyday life that people have been experiencing for millennia. But instead of being a 40-year-old rock star who doesn't have any big troubles in life anymore, I'm a 40-year-old regular person who has all of these regular everyday struggles. And I sing about them in a really profound and poetic way.
Nice. That almost sounds a little bit rehearsed.
I'm sorry.
No, no, no.
I've
That was
been
a
trying
great
to
answer.
sell my people, sell my music to people for so long. This is like the soundbite.
No, that was a great answer. I like it. So tell me about kind of where you're at now. What are you working on? Where do you kind of hope to see your artistry grow? Fill me in on some details about that.
So for the last, my current project is called Egress. It's going to be a story told through an album about the last 10 years that I struggled with depression and postpartum depression specifically, and then had an affair, ruined my marriage, blew up my whole life, and started over from scratch in my 30s, depressed with a terrible job, and came out of that one day like got a new job and started having energy to write again. So I wrote about everything that I went through in the past 10 years.
Excellent. And so that's the current collection of songs or album that you're working on. Okay. And how far along into that are you? Do you expect that to be released anytime soon, or is it an ongoing works?
I'm starting the Kickstarter for it this Friday, so it should be out by next year. I'm starting to Kickstart it this Friday for a pretty moderate amount of money, small amount, so that I can just finish up what I haven't raised already.
Sure, that's great. And then, let's say 5, 10 years from now, where would you like to see yourself?
I would like to be recording another album in 5 to 10 years, but realistically, I would like to be touring with this work that I've created and being successful at it. That would be my ideal.
Okay, and you kind of answered this question already, but let's say that you did get that touring itinerary together. Would that be just you as a solo singer songwriter on stage, or would you try to put like a full band together?
I would love to get a whole band together for that, but I would need to hire some people because the people that I have at home are stuck at home in their jobs.
Sure, I understand. All right, so do you have anything out there? You mentioned that you did have an album that you recorded many years ago. Is that online anywhere?
I do. I have a couple of albums. I wrote my the album that I'm most proud of is called Unraveled, and that's on my Spotify. So is my first album, which is called Dial Tones. I also released a children's music album that did pretty well. I did that during that 10 years of depression when I was first trying to like figure out if I was going to save my marriage. So I wrote this great children's album called Yes Means Yes, and that did pretty well. But yeah, Unraveled is the album that I'm most proud of for my adult music.
Okay, and you mentioned that's on Spotify. What are some of your favorite memories that you've had in the time that you've worked on music? Whether it was, going through that depression period where you wrote that children's album, or any of your other two albums, or even prior to that. What memories stand out to you to keep you motivated and want to keep creating music?
The people who've reached out to me to tell me that my music has meant something to me, which happens, once in a while. I'll get a message about either my children's music or my current music where somebody will say, I really appreciate what you've done. Here's how it's helped me. And one time, I don't know, have you heard of the Mountain Goats?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, they're a pretty good band. The lead singer of this band, I gave him my children's music CD to give to his kid a few years ago, and he wrote back to me and said that his kid loves the CD. So he gave me a quote to use on my social media to help me promote myself. So when getting your total idol to reach out to you is kind of the dream, right?
Right, absolutely. Very cool. So on that note, where can people, check you out, reach out to you, and communicate with you?
I'm on Instagram at CACIE. That's Casey. So at Casey on Instagram, and Acacia Sears on Facebook, ACACIA, and then Sears like the store, SEARS on Facebook. And it's the same name on Spotify. So if you want to look me up.
Awesome. So I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So what's a message that you have that you think anybody else should hear?
Your art is worth it even when no one is listening or watching it right now. Your art is important and you should keep making it.